very warm welcome to Bharata First. You're watching Big Picture with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. First, let me inform you about Bharata First Knowledge Center, an initiative that will help each one of you transform the way you learn. You can go to our website kc.bharatafirst.com for more details. It's a learning experience like none other, and it will help you not only in your competitive exams journey but prepare you in a better way for life itself. Register now at kc.bharatafirst.com and avail the limited period early bird offer. Now, since you're here, I would like to thank you for your continued support. For those of you who haven't already subscribed, please like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and then all notifications. Do follow our social media handles for all the latest updates, and you can also subscribe to our newsletter to get some incisive content. The Bharata First team runs a daily Big Picture quiz. Please do participate by going through the description in Big Picture videos. Here are the UPI IDs for those of you who would like to come forward and contribute. A small contribution that you make will be a giant leap for us to keep bringing you this content. So do continue to show your love and support. I need it now more so than ever. In case you have trouble with the UPI IDs, you may click on the payment link in the description box below and follow the steps. All this information along with some must-see recommendations are in the description of this video. Please go through it. Now, the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs last week approved the Deep Ocean Mission of the Ministry of Earth Sciences with a view to explore the deep ocean for resources and develop deep sea technologies for sustainable use of ocean resources. The meeting was chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. To be implemented at an estimated cost of around 4,000 crore rupees for a period of 5 years in a phase-wise manner, the estimated cost for the first phase for 3 years would be around 2,823 crore rupees. The Deep Ocean Mission will be a mission mode project to support the blue economy initiatives of the Government of India. The Ministry of Earth Sciences will be the nodal ministry implementing this multi-institutional ambitious mission. In this edition of Big Picture, we will analyze the Deep Ocean Mission. Joining me on the program today are Urmi Goswami, Assistant Editor of the Economic Times, Ajay Dua, former Commerce Secretary, Government of India, and TV Venkateshwaran, Senior Scientist, Vigyan Prasad. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of Big Picture. Mr. Dua, let's talk about the Deep Ocean Mission now and the economic implications, why it is important, what is the blue economy, and how is it going to help us?
Frank, it's pretty obvious that we have hitherto concentrated our resources and policy much more on onshore exploitation, onshore exploration, those kind of things, and have ignored relatively, not only, I would say, only India, probably globally, with 95% of the seabed yet to be explored. All efforts, global efforts, international efforts over the decades have not yet really gone down to exploiting what is there on the planet. That's number one. For us in India, it's fairly important because we have a coastline of about 7,500 kilometers, approximately. 7 states fully developed, dependent with coastlines, or is it 9? Now 9, I think, and about 1,500 islands as well. So for us, it becomes important, one from livelihood point of view of our 30% of our population in these 9 states and the islands. Second, it becomes important for us because two things in which we are deficient, continue to be deficient. One is in minerals, and second is in energy. The development of the economy, the blue economy, and of which this ocean bed mission is an integral part, is going to be addressing, amongst other things, these two deficiencies of our access to minerals, as and when commercial exploitation is allowed by the UN's International Seabed Authority. And second, our chronic need for more energy and more affordable energy.
Absolutely. This is where I'd like to bring you in, TV Venkateshwaran. Let's talk about, the resources that are available in the deep ocean and how will it help us as a whole. And from a scientific perspective, why is it important to explore the deep oceans?
Okay, if you look at the present time, we have, let's say, a very detailed map of moon. Tell me any part of moon, we have a very detailed map. I mean, a map which can give you at least a meter resolution. But as the earlier speaker pointed out, that 95% of what is there under ocean, we are not very sure. I mean, of course, you will find some map, but those maps are all purely extrapolation. They are not accurate. So we don't really know what is underwater. Knowing is the first step in doing, right? I mean, if you want to build a bicycle, you should know, first of all, for example, if you put two wheels and then connect it together, and if you ride it, I mean, it'll stand vertical, right? So knowing is the first part. So this mission, actually, although it talks about future exploitation of resources from ocean, one of the main aspect is knowing. If you look at the mission, there are six components. So one is talking about developing underwater robotics. Essentially, it means that you'll have capacity to go underwater and look at things, collect samples. It is also talking about climate change advisory services with respect to ocean. India has a huge ocean surrounding it. So we need to understand how the climate changes, including things like, for example, tsunami, right? So then looking at biodiversity, I mean, looking at what is there, we don't even know, right? So the biodiversity survey is part of it. And it also talks about deep ocean survey, mapping what kind of materials are available in different parts. And then it also talks about energy from ocean. I mean, it can be, for example, thermal energy or wave energy. Right now, of course, the mission talks about proof of concept. I mean, it doesn't talk about establishing energy forms, but developing the proof of concept. And then establishing an advanced marine station for ocean biology. So if you look at it, the main components of this mission is knowing. At this point of time, the mission does not talk about doing, except a little bit in terms of weather services, ocean weather services, where I mean our knowledge is much better compared to other areas. That's what is the current mission.
Absolutely. Right. Points taken. And thank you for so elaborately explaining that to us and so putting it in such simple terms, mainly because most of these concepts, it's difficult to understand. So thank you for simplifying it for us. Gurmi Goswami, coming to you now, let's talk about these couple of important aspects. One, like Dr. Venkateshwaran spoke about the climate change aspects and how it is important to understand that and how it will help us going forward as well by predicting, what is likely to happen in terms of a cyclone, in terms of anything that happens with the weather from a climate change perspective, and also from an environment perspective and an ecology perspective. This is extremely important, isn't it?
Yes. If I can sort of just take a step back, following up on Dr. Venkateshwaran's sort of explanation, his exposition of this mission is, if you look at it very quickly, you'll realize that three main stools, three main pillars of this mission. So it's like a proper three-legged. I mean, it's a good, stable three-legged stool, literally, and in which you have, one is the knowledge component. So you're talking in terms of learning, proof of concept, as Dr. Venkateshwaran put it, and also about grooming scientists for the future. So that's one component of it. The other one, as you mentioned, is the climate change environmental aspect, because we have to remember that our the global understanding on oceans is very limited, and yet oceans are responsible for taking up most of the being absorptive of carbon dioxide and GHG gases, and sort of they have been a bit like a thermostat to the world, and we don't understand a lot of it. And oceans are reaching their absorptive capacity, so we need to understand what's happening there, and we need to understand it better. And the other pillar is the economy, so where You will have, we are talking about minerals, which Mr. Dua spoke about, the minerals, the energy. But what makes this mission so interesting, and perhaps I think that's perhaps the most important aspect of this mission, is that all these three components are treated with equal emphasis. You know, if you look at the 6 components, you can neatly divide them up into 3 big baskets. So one is not more important than the other. It is important that we think about, you know, the minerals, because we are talking about what kind of minerals are we talking about? Iron, manganese, cobalt, nickel. Think about it. These are all minerals which are critical for the energy transition, the move to low carbon economy. And therefore, these are critical. They're critical from an environmental perspective. They're critical from an economy perspective, and they're critical for the long-term well-being of this country and its people. When we don't know much about the marine biosphere and the and ecosystem, we need to learn more. We need to understand more. We have a sense that we have a sense of the understanding, as both Mr. Dua and Dr. Venkateswaran said. A lot of it is extrapolation. We need to have better knowledge, and then of course is that India needs to be at that cutting edge, and we have proven on many occasions that with the right kind of emphasis and the right intervention at the right time, India can be part of that effort. And to me, this deep ocean mission is really that. India signaling that we may be a, you know, low middle income country, but we have capacity, and with the right kind of emphasis, we can be among those who are at the cutting edge. We don't want to
Absolutely.
be left behind anymore, and that, I think, is the critical. So yes, the environmental aspect is, as I said, it runs through the entire sort of ethos of this mission. So it's critical, but it's not isolated. It is the leitmotif in that sense
Absolutely.
of this mission.
Absolutely. Mr. Dua, let me bring you in once again. Let's talk about the potential really as far as the deep ocean is concerned. Can we fully tap it? Do we have the capacity to fully tap it? And how far can this go from an economic perspective?
Frank, that this mission is all about developing an ability to tap it. As of now, we are at, in fact, an earlier stage where we don't even know what does seabed has for mankind, or for, I would say, life in general, in stock. We want to take a step forward in that direction. There's 4,000 crores to be spent over the next 5 years. It's a modest sum of amount, but all in the right direction. I only wish we could have approved it 2 or 3 years ago when it was conceived. But I think that apart, with the other priorities and the COVID since then, the fact that a formal approval has been given to it, and along with this mission, we've also declared our blue economy policy. The new Department of Animal Husbandry and Fisheries, actually a ministry, separate ministry altogether in the government of India, stands created. So I think all the moves are in the right direction. The question is now for us to close the gap between the knowledge, ability, and actually moving on to the commercial exploitation of the minerals, particularly those what has been allotted, the 75,000 square kilometers in the mid-Indian Ocean, which has been allotted to us tentatively, because the agreement has yet to take place. That's why I'm using the convention has yet to come in force. But these, we have, like every other country, 200 kilometers of exclusive economic zone, which every country is entitled to, other than China, which probably owns all the seas. That apart, that was lighter side. But the fact is, we should be ready to get these 75, what is available in these 75,000 square kilometers, mapped out, the ability to it developed through the mission, as Urmi and Dr. Venkateshwaran so elaborately explained, and get cracking at as soon as the convention is in position, as soon as we are legally, internationally capable, internationally permitted to go ahead with it. And I think, well, the projects like Sagarmala project, which is to build IT abilities in all the ports, OSmart, and the emphasis on deep sea fishing, no longer merely confining ourselves to the non-mechanized way of going about fishing, etc. All these things, I think we should continue to emphasize, and I would say because of the environmental benefit and the fact that our land in India, we are running compared to our population, we are a land scarce country, that you have an option now to exploit and get the requisite resources, raw materials from the sea. I think these steps which have been taken need to be intensified going forward. More allocation and more allocation made, but we have to be doing whatever we do from a sustainability point of view, sustainable over time. It cannot be merely short-term assessment, because we all realize that short-term is now going to be very short-term,
Absolutely.
very, very short. We have to be looking at ways and means of doing it for a much longer period. Worried about climate change, which Urmi elaborately explained, worrying about the marine life, which is, flora, fauna, microbes, whatever. All of them have to be kept in back of our, not way back, front and back, I would say both of our efforts, because going forward, that is the area, unexplored area, which can be of tremendous potential for the economic development of countries like India.
Absolutely, absolutely. TV Venkateshwaran, let me bring you in once again and talk about another aspect. The kind of technology that is required for, going ahead with this kind of a mission. Do we have it? Do we need to develop it? How much can we explore? How much can we actually do with the technology that we already have at hand?
Okay, I'm going to give you three examples and three different examples highlighting three aspects. Let me look at, for example, one basic science factor. If you look at the Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea, the Bay of Bengal is less salty compared to Arabian Sea. That's why you have more cyclones in Bay of Bengal. And assume that the current rate of global warming takes place, more snow will melt, more fresh water will come into Bay of Bengal, which would mean that the sea surface temperature can go haywire and you can have very intense cyclones. So for studying this, we need stations, we need data points, we need supercomputer, and so on. So this is also part of deep sea mission. Remember that. I mean, climate change. Second, let's look at, for example, fishing. Most of us would agree that the fishing, if you are going to improve, should help people with lesser means, like fisher people who are using catamaran rather than big trawlers, right? Okay, I want to support catamaran. So what do I support with? I should be able to tell them that when they are getting into the sea, that go in this direction, go to this distance, you will get better catch. Okay. For that, I need to understand how the upswelling is happening in which part of the ocean. There is actually a study that is going on. I mean, like an experimental thing going on in nearby Andaman, where the ICIR's Andaman station and the Zoological Survey of India are providing support to the fisher people who are using catamaran. So if it needs to be expanded, you need to bring in very high sophisticated marine understanding. Okay, so second challenge. Third is, every 10 meters that you go under ocean, the pressure is going to be 1 atmosphere more. So if I go 1,000 meter, the pressure is going to be 10 times the atmospheric pressure that we feel on the surface. So anything that I'm going to take it inside, any submersible that I'm going to take it inside, should be able to withstand that pressure, which means that I have to build it with that kind of a component which will withstand that pressure and also stand corrosion. Okay, so many other issues are available. So which means that a huge amount of technology we need to develop. Many of this technology we may have to do it on our own country. I mean, that's what people have already started. I mean, for example, a robotic under ocean, the NIOT and others have jointly started a mission on working on it. I mean, they have prototypes and they're working on material. So all this provides us opportunity to do good science, good technology, and if we rightly focus, good development.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very, very important. I think I'll take this particular point forward with you, Urmi Goswami, because we are talking about commercial exploitation and we are talking about good environment as well. So how important is sustainable development, and can that be achieved through this deep ocean mission?
Well, sustainable. What is sustainable development? Broadly speaking, it is a compact that says that I will not leave the earth any poorer than I found it. I mean, very simply put, it's that. So it is how we use technology to ensure that happens. And you can bring all this together. It's also about understanding how we interact with nature better, or how we can improve our lives and our livelihoods by interacting with nature in a manner that doesn't take away from nature, but is enough. We interact in a manner so that we have not contributed to its degeneration or degradation. So, in a sense, it is, and that's why I keep saying that to me this deep ocean mission is something very interesting in the Indian context. It's almost for the first time we are getting knowledge creation and exploitation of that knowledge, and I use the word exploitation as in deployment of that knowledge for good. So I know exploitation, the word has in a sense
A
a
negative
negative
connotation,
yes,
yeah.
but I mean to so let's say deployment of knowledge and development of knowledge for the greater good, as well as learning to use what nature provides us in a manner that does not actually harm nature, which includes us. I mean, very often when we speak about nature, we only think about trees and birds and animals, but we too are part of this natural ecosystem. We are not outside of it. Biodiversity includes the human life. So that is why this mission is so interesting. You in its design, it is such that you cannot slice one away from the other. The fact is that we have to get better and better at how we interact with nature, and by that I mean not in the traditional sense that how can we use nature better for our glory, but exactly how can we use nature better for our glory without degrading it. So how can we use resources better for a longer period in a more fruitful way? All of this comes from the interaction of these three pillars. To go back, and there is one thing I wanted to sort of emphasize, which is outside, technically outside of this mission, but is very much part of this mission. If you remember, I mentioned about a three-legged stool. Now, a lot of people will tell you a three-legged stool can be very, very unstable. Probably right, and it all depends on the design. You can have pretty stable three-legged stools as well, but actually this stool has a fourth leg, except that it's not internal to the mission, but it is in the context of the mission, and that is the strategic importance of the Indo-Pacific, where we have our allotment. We cannot forget the larger geopolitical situation in which we are moving today. So that is the fourth pillar. So there are advantages there too that we will gain from this mission in terms of a better engagement in the Indo-Pacific region, which is again critical to our well-being. So in a sense, this is a very composite, well-packaged, well-designed mission. Now, of course, the real issue is how do we take it from great design to great implementation? And I think that is where we need to concentrate, because that is technically our weakest link. in most cases. So individually we'll do great things, and maybe little bits and pieces will do very well. But can we move together as this mission expects us to? Because it's like a perfect jigsaw puzzle. So if you lose a few pieces along the way, that is the end of the puzzle. So we can't afford to do that. I think that is where we should be looking at the future. That is where we need to start thinking as well. So as Dr. Venkateshwaran said, we are already talking about prototypes. The scientific community has moved ahead because they understand the value of time and the need to be right there. I think there is another community that needs to start thinking in terms of how to ensure the implementation. Everybody moves, not obviously everybody will not move at the same speed, but in the same direction. There has to be a greater interaction, so that the direction of travel is the same, the speed of travel is within the margin of error, so that nobody is left behind too far. And that, I think, is the crucial part of this mission, which needs to be focused on a lot more than we normally end up doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. It's time to get quick closing comments now from all my panelists for the best way forward. Starting first with you, Mr. Dua.
I would say very, succinctly saying bang on. Keep going. You're on the right track. Let the resources, societal resources, be directed towards this mission and the related issues of development of blue economy. And when I talk of societal resources, it is not merely the government by itself. Even a lot of work can be done in this direction. Money can be brought in, research abilities can be brought in, prototype development, etc., by the private sector, research institutions, academicians. We are getting into an area which is certainly promising. What we have to determine is how promising, and when I use the word promising, how much of it is actually is implementable, a word which Urmi talked about. Implementation is what we are worried about. So let's, even within our 75,000 square kilometers, which we are being allotted, is fine. That's for our commercial exploitation, our economic zone, etc. But this exchange, there would have to be tremendous amount of cooperation with others also who are have been allotted their areas, or the 5 advanced countries which have developed certain abilities of going deeper, going deep and deeper. As scientific cooperation, technological cooperation, and with a very clear understanding that it is not the one who reaches first is going to own that area. It is economic exploitation is allowed. What you own is your 12 miles, nautical miles outside your coastline, or the rest of it you are allowed to exploit economically. That is all, nothing more than that. It's not for setting up your naval bases. It's not meant for. It is because it is common. Hence, you have to cooperate in whatever you do in those areas.
Absolutely. Absolutely. TV Venkateshwaran.
Yeah. So if you look at the earth sciences, various disciplines within earth sciences which have recently coalesced into this Ministry of Earth Sciences, from the time of India's independence have been playing a very, very crucial role. We don't realize it, we don't hear about it, but it's been playing a very, very important role. Let me just give one example, and from that take my closing point. Go back to 1950s, look at newspapers which are November, December, you would find thousands of people dying out of storms and cyclones in the Bay of Bengal coast. Today, we have the ability to predict the landing point almost 20 kilometers close. So we can evacuate people, and the number of deaths have been reduced by multiple degrees. The life saved is huge in numbers. We don't get to hear it because we don't compare this kind of numbers in a long time. It started with even a very simple aspect of finding the right location where the cyclone relief center should be established. That's how they started. And then they have built up to this where it's saving huge life. Looking at that way, I mean, the various branches of Department of Earth Sciences have been able to do quite a lot of good stuff. And this one would be, it'll be like a new door. I mean, they will be able to explore a very new area, which not many people in the world have ventured so far. Not very many people have been able to go beyond 1,000 meters below sea. Right now, they are building a robotic submersible, which can go up to 3,000 meters and more. I mean, like this Matsya, which can go up to 6,000 meters. And then the amount of science, technology, and the development potential that it is going to bring in is substantial. And I think for a new India, it's also an inspiration.
Absolutely. And Urmi Goswami, close the show for us with your quick concluding remarks.
Okay, so the first thing we have to focus on going forward is implementation. We have to ensure that doesn't become our weakest link. Two, we should not be scared of experimentation, and by which I mean not just in the strict parameters of the six components of this program, but encourage spin-offs. A lot of new discoveries or new inventions have come from spin-offs of the main sort of the main thing under consideration. So that has to be there. I mean, Professor Venkateshwar mentioned about fishing. How I mean that's one kind of a spin-off, but you'll have many technological spin-offs. Three is, of course, collaboration. We should not just talking about collaborating with international agencies or international scientists, but even within the country. The Ministry of Earth Sciences is the nodal agency, but it is not just an MOES concern. It has to include all of science kind of an approach, because there will be other issues that will come up, and therefore we have to have a broader outlook. So this mission is a starting point. This mission is important because it brings together knowledge production, it brings together knowledge deployment, economic considerations, and climate change and ecosystem protection, all of which are critical to the long-term sustained development and well-being of not just our people, but the planet in general, and our economic growth. So it is a composite program. We have to ensure that we are able to leverage it for duplication in other areas as well. This is critical, but this is like a blueprint, not just for the blue economy, but actually a blueprint for building back better. We need to be able to leverage this for learnings in other areas as well. Science is critical. We mustn't forget that. But equally critical is deploying science for good, deploying science for the well-being of people and the planet.
Absolutely. All right. We'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. So what's coming out of this discussion is that the Deep Ocean Mission is an excellent initiative. The main component for the time being is knowing, and we will get into the doing aspect in due course. There are 6 components of the mission, which can be put in 3 baskets: learning and grooming, climate change and environment, and economy and development. The idea is excellent, but we will have to see how it will be implemented. All stakeholders need to come on board and move in the same direction and at a comfortable speed for everyone, so that no one is left behind. Well, before I go, let me inform you about Bharata First Knowledge Center, an initiative that will help each one of you and transform the way you learn. You can go to our website kc.bharatafirst.com for more details. Register now and avail the limited period early bird offer. Don't forget, it's an all new learning experience that will change the way you gain knowledge and prepare you for life itself. Thank you once again for those of you who have shown your continued support. For those of you who would like to come forward and subscribe, please do so. Subscribe, hit the bell icon, and then all notifications, and also share the content so that more people get to know about Bharata First. Do follow our social media handles for all the latest updates, and you can also subscribe to our newsletter to get some incisive content. The Bharata First team runs a daily Big Picture quiz. Please do participate by going through the description in Big Picture videos. Here are the UPI IDs for those of you who would like to come forward and make a contribution. A small contribution that you make will be a giant leap for us to keep bringing you this content. So do continue to show your love and support, because I need it now more so than ever. In case you have trouble with the UPI IDs, you may click on the payment link in the description box below and follow the steps. All this information along with some must-see recommendations are in the description of this video. Please go through it. That's it from me. See you again next time.